It's that time again for another weekly Q&A session. If you're not familiar with what this is, it is a similar setup to the weekly live streams, except of course, instead of being live, we are fielding questions that have already been asked in Discord, which you can actually contribute to as well. And if you are a member on YouTube, a part of like the members community there, then you can also get priority for these. Anyways, before we actually get into it, I want to have a very, very quick announcement here, and then also a very quick Bitcoin analysis as well. Well, you can probably guess very little has happened for Bitcoin, but this indicator that you've been seeing in the background over the past few weeks, maybe even a month now, which is the price action pivots indicator, is now very quietly, very subtly available over here on the Teachable School, which, by the way, you can get a free 30-day trial for this one with the same code as what we've seen before, with the code trial in all capitals. And that actually will apply to the Quant Prime AI, of course, quantum wave bands, and Caretaker's full indicator suite as well. And this one, in my opinion, it's just it's a really simple concept, to be honest. Obviously, the coding portion of this is a fucking it's a fucking nightmare as far as I'm concerned. But as far as what it tells you, very, very simple. It gives you the price action pivot for generating essentially a bias on price action. I found a lot of use with it recently because it does essentially act as a really, really good filtering mechanism for which side of the market to be trading. In this case, we can see the daily time frame is showing a bearish pivot, meaning that as long as Bitcoin is below this level here at $86,500, probably better to be betting on the current side of the trend, which is to the downside. If we go down to a lower term time frame, however, if you recall from yesterday's video, the bullish pivot for the 4-hour time frame is actually right here at about 84,250 or so, giving us a very, 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 very tight range. Of course, if Bitcoin does start to break below here, I do look for the daily to very likely take on over. We also do see that daily stochastic momentum is getting up into the critical zone here. It will turn down officially on today's closure if Bitcoin closed below 82,500. I don't think that that's going to happen today, but perhaps coming into tomorrow, that number is going to go up a lot and, would have the potential to do that. Still, though, I remain with my sort of medium and long-term view. I guess all of my views are pretty much the same over the past week and a half now, since Bitcoin really put in this low, which is in the very, very short term. Does Bitcoin play a short-term downside move here? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't have strong opinions on that. My strong opinion is on Bitcoin not taking out the April lows, the current lows from last week, if in case you didn't know. Well, you probably do. And before a bigger bounce, and then very likely more long-term, I do lean towards downside, but Bitcoin can bounce a lot. Bitcoin can bounce a lot in the interim, even into the mid 90s. Anyways, keep those pivots in mind, because as long as Bitcoin's playing between those, it's really, nothing new, to be honest with you. And of course, if Bitcoin does even just trade above that last Tuesday's high at 86,450, then I would be looking for the upside to emerge first, rather than a short-term downside try, maybe close to like 80 or 81, something like that, and then trying an upside move. So a lot of routes that this one can take. I don't think that there's anything super interesting here from like a trading perspective. You're probably better off just like I don't know, doing something else until we see a resolution of this. These are not like high probability scenarios that I typically do like when it comes to like a good trading environment. Anyways, we'll start it off with, I completely derped it up over here. Let's start it off with, of course, yes, there we go. Let's start it off with the YouTube members, and I have posted the new Q&A session, by the way, as well. So you can contribute to that if you so desire. And we'll start it off with Crypto Rect RD. He says, "Dear Sir Crown, how are you? Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for asking. I am actually pretty good today. I got a really good night of sleep last night. I've stopped the creatine, and I think that was actually fucking up my sleeps. Hopefully you're doing well as well, sir. And yes, indeed it is. Chilly and rainy in Helsinki as usual during April. Anyways, you want to look at a few shitcoins here? We can do that. We can go with MPC first on the daily. Let's check it out from this view here. I'm going to go to MEXC for this one, and time frames you were asking about were not included, so I'm just going to go with it. As far as the daily goes, we actually are getting a bit of a short-term bullish pivot as long as this thing is above 1.25 cents, something like that. I do look at this as as actually switching into a short-term likely uptrend. We do see a higher, actually, no, this is not a higher high, but we do have a higher low. If this one can actually trade back above this local high at 1.5 cents, then you will have at least a short-term reversal confirmed. And I'd be looking for this one to very likely give a move somewhere up here, somewhere around like 2 to 2.25 cents, something like that. Overall, long term, obviously, I'm never going to really like a chart like this, but it is what it is. And you do have actually a weekly higher low in place here as well. So I do have to favor a short term reversal. I would not again be saying that it gets any sort of continuation of new all-time highs or anything like this, but it can have a very big upside move percentage wise. Anyways, moving on, we got EUL on the daily. This is Euler because I know because I've seen it so many times as of recent. And let's check it out here. This one's popping up to our next presumed area of interest, which is 770. Again, bullish pivot is coming in from that low of this past Monday, the 7th of April, which is 5:15. And this one actually looking a lot better than the last one. In fact, this is looking like a very healthy long-term consolidation here. I believe that is essentially a massive ascending triangle. And while it is testing the top side of this boundary, I don't think it's actually going to break out on this attempt, but long term, I think it does. I really do think that it does. When you see something like this with long term, weekly higher lows, likely a good indication that at some point it's going to break out the top side. In this particular instance right here, do I think it's going to break out from this exact motion? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd probably bet on no for this one. Maybe comes back down, consolidates a little bit lower, and then tries for the breakout. But regardless of my opinion on that, which is completely fucking irrelevant, to be honest with you, if this thing can close on a daily time frame above 770, I would say, hey, it is resolved to the upside. Get ready for a move towards basically $10, probably a short-term pullback there, and then maybe continuation to the prior all-time high. I mean, that's another 30% move, I suppose. But yeah, definitely looking like one of the more healthy altcoins. In fact, I'm going to add this one to my list just because it's very rare that you see altcoins doing something like this in this portion of the market. Anyways, moving on, we got Doggy, potential next higher low range. Potential next higher low range. I don't know what you mean by that, to be honest. We'll go over here to Doggy. Still, the LARP ones are kind of what I think plays out. You can see that this one's obviously relatively weak compared to the last couple ones that we looked at. Still working on lower highs. This one also has a bearish pivot at just under 17 cents. Your bullish pivot, if you even want to call it that, is 15 cents. This one is in a range at best. If it does come back down and take out Wednesday's low, even just trades below there, I would be looking for this one to retest, 14 cents or so. Similar to Bitcoin, I have a really hard time looking at this one is likely to make new lows below last week's low without a decent rally first. So, I am more biased towards this one, probably doing something like this, maybe comes back down here and then pops up, gives a nice little rally somewhere around, 18.5, maybe as much as 20 cents, something like this, higher term time frames like the weeklies coming off of the 200 simple here. I don't like betting against a break of that. Obviously, at some point it is possible for it to break it like you see over here, but generally you're going to get bounces around a region like this, and weekly stochastic momentum is about to turn up. So yeah, I would say as long as this thing's above 14 cents, I'd be generally betting on an upside bounce. I think that the bounce can even come all the way up to like a quarter, 25 cents. It could be a lot, but that's obviously going to take a lot of time. Anyways, other than that, that is all we got for the members today. Plenty of more action to go. Let me go over into the Discord here. We've actually been having a really fun conversation in the Discord about the global situation, which is probably the only thing to be talking about right now because price is so fucking boring. But we'll go over here to the weekly Q&A section, and actually let me just make sure that my charts are legible. Okay, yes, they are. All right, nice. Okay, here we go. So yeah, by the way, if you do want to join in on these Q&A sessions, you just need to join the Discord. It's 100% free to do, and just find your way over here to the weekly Q&A section under the K video content section. It's pretty fucking simple, to be honest. Anyways. I'll take a sip of water in preparation for the festivities to come. We have Mr. Rectoffs first. He says, GM, Crown, and Elsa, happy Easter. Happy Easter to you as well. Happy Easter to all of the celebrators out there. Can you please take a look at Tau on the daily and weekly? Okay. This one sounds familiar, but let's see. Maybe Binance is going to be the one to go through for this. Yeah, okay. Long term, don't like it, but short term, does it rally more? Probably yes. You know, you got that same sort of setup with the weekly stochastic all sort of crossing the upside here above 182. I think that this one at least gets somewhere closer to that yellow moving average, which is 345. Yeah, 345. Long-term bearish as long as you're below, the 200 simple, which is 430 and coming down. But if it did get a rally extension around there, that would be an obvious sell area for me. For now, though, you can read the price action pivot, suggesting upside as long as this thing is above 223. Obviously, it's a little bit late to be calling it, upside from there when, it's already had a pretty decent move, to be fair. But like I said, I do think that it extends a little bit more. Just I'm not looking at this as like a massively impressive chart, but probably does move up a little bit more. Like I said, 340 to 360 is likely. If things get really crazy on an extension, then maybe like 430 to 440, but that's where I'd be looking for on a potential macro lower high there. Hopefully that was helpful, man. Myth Reindeer, he's back. We're actually going to be watching a Lord of the Rings concert today, which I'm really excited about. Anyways, could you please look at HNT? Bybit will do daily and weekly. Okay, HNT. I'm just going to go with this chart because it has the most history. If Bitcoin will salvage itself in summer for 120,000, for example, where would you see? Okay, so we are making a massive assumption here. So I'm just answering the question as best as I can. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. But yeah, okay. So the hypothetical is Bitcoin at 120,000 in summer at some point. Where would the equivalent, where would you expect something like HMT to be? And let's go over here and, I'd imagine at least like 5.25. If Bitcoin's at 120, this thing actually probably puts in a pretty decent rally. I would think anywhere between like $8 to $10. Maybe even more. I mean, if Bitcoin's really making massively new highs, then that's certainly possible. But that's a major assumption here. And then you also go on to say, P.S. I had your TA course on crown trading website a couple years ago. Never created an account on Teachable until recently. How can I access that course now as it shows that I'm not enrolled? Yeah. Okay. So email Elsa at crowntrading.net. In fact, I'll just reply to you here. Email elsa.crowntrading@outlook.net. Is it .net or .com? I think it's .com. It's .com, right? Outlook's.com, right? That doesn't, it should be .com. Anyways, and welcome to our new subscriber. I can't read your name there because it's a little bit difficult with the background, but welcome, sir, and take off those pants because it is time to get analysisized. And of course, if you do want to, get this content in your inbox in the future at more relevant times, then consider doing the same perhaps. Anyways, email Elsa, she'll set you up. It'll be no problem. And just as soon as you do that, she can get to work on it. Anyways, moving on, we have Steve in UK. I wonder where he's from. SEI Coin Weekly. Sure, man. SEI USD here. I forgot to go live on Twitter as well. You know what? I'm going to go live right now on Twitter. Weekly Q&A crypto. Weekly. Let's try this. Crypto Q&A. There we go. All right, cool. We go live there as well. Nice. All right. Anyways, SEI here. And you were on a weekly? I think a weekly. Yeah. Okay. Daily. I just want to go over the daily related to the weekly here, but daily, can be bullish as long as you're above, again, that last Wednesday's low. That's about 1635. Generally I'd be looking somewhere around here, about 20 cents almost. That's a daily. However, weekly, I do think that the bounces can carry on more. Like a lot of these things are going to be getting pity bounces, I think, in the next coming weeks. This thing also seeing some momentum actually turn up as long as it's above 14 cents right now, decently above there. I'm not saying that this thing's going to reverse to new all-time highs or anything like this. I think that that's extremely unlikely from here, or maybe even for a very, very long time. But, you know, on the weekly, could it rally all the way up here over the next month or two? Yeah, definitely possible. Did have a little try over here, but that LARP line's certainly going to be wrong. At any rate, you know, this is kind of where I'd be expecting lower highs if this thing is going to be long-term bearish. But that would give us a range between like 30 cents on the lower end to 35 cents on the higher end. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty fucking big move from where it's at right now, right? Anyways, moving on, we have or actually, let me go on to Twitter here. I might as well follow along with some of the comments. Hey, what? It's not live. Oh, yes, it is live. Okay. It's weird. Wasn't showing on my own screen. All right, fair enough. I'm over here on Twitter now as well. We're just doing the weekly Q&A session from Discord in case you're joining in now and wondering what the fuck this is. Anyways, we'll go with X. I don't actually see the name because I have my streamer mode enabled. Let's turn it off. The Schmog says Trumpcoin daily weekly. Sure, man. Let's see. Trump USD. It's got to be, I'm guessing maybe Coinbase is going to have a long-term, yeah, that looks about right. Okay. Wow. I'll tell you what you already know. Range is between 880 to the upside versus downside at 740. Have to be asking myself, do I think it's actually going to break out here above that range high at 880? You know, if it does, I think you could go for a decent rally here on a short-term reversal back above $10. I mean, that's a pretty big move anyways, percentage-wise, anywhere between like 10 to $11. But, you know, I'm not going to call a reversal on something that looks like this. I would just be looking for short-term pops to the upside, like you see right here, like you see right here, and like you see right here. Just what happens every time you get one of those? Well, it comes back down to earth very quickly. So hard to trust something like this, man. Very hard to trust something like this. We are working with a very limited amount of information here, but you know, even the 4-hour time frame is still working on a lower high here. So, you know, I would really wait for it to actually break out above that 880 region first before looking at this thing as likely to put in another one of those, you know, doomed rallies, let's say. Buckhorn to Steve Dudia on Twitter. Nice. But yeah, in the short term, actually would be biased towards this one coming a little bit lower, maybe trying for another higher load around 790. And then your obvious bearish pivot is all the way down here at 740, you know, below there. Just expect new lows. And I guess this thing continues to trend towards zero over time. I wonder how Trump would take that though. I don't think he would like that. I think he'd probably start to distance himself. What's up, Lazy XBT on Twitter? Hope you're enjoying your Easter break. There ain't no break for me, man, but there's also no work for me either, man. This is like the highlight of my day, you know, hanging out and chilling, talking about magic internet money with people who also seem to care about it as well. That's pretty cool, man, because very, very rarely do I get that sort of interactions in real life. Anyways, Hamia says, hi, Crown, if Bitcoin goes bearish, how low do you expect to see it to go? Do you see Bitcoin ever going below 40,000, for example? Okay, so I'm guessing within the context of this conversation, you mean like, do I think Bitcoin if Bitcoin were to initiate a bear market from here, which I do think is more likely, Bitcoin rallies up, you know, close, maybe even a little bit above those January highs first, and then comes down. But effectively, you know, the highs from January, I think, are very, very close to the cycle highs in terms of, you know, just nominal dollar price. Where would I expect the low of the cycle to be? Well, let's relate a few things here. We know from cycle to cycle, there have been diminishing returns both to the upside and the downside, meaning that, you know, to the upside, I think it's rather obvious, like the highs are less impressive each cycle, but the lows, the drawdowns from those highs, from those cycle highs, are also getting less and less each and every cycle. So this one here is almost 94% on the first cycle. Okay. Then from that cycle to the next cycle, it comes down about 86.5%. Okay. So we're seeing a reduction already. Then in the 2017 cycle comes down 84.25%. So again, reducing a little bit right there. And then the most recent cycle, we saw it come down about 77.5%. So I do think it's relevant to assume it's going to be less than the last cycle, probably between somewhere between like, I don't know, 8 to to 15% less. So that would put us maybe around like 60% on the lower end. So let's just say like Bitcoin, I don't know, tops out somewhere around here. Again, that is the assumption. Could it come down below 40? Below 40 would be about 63%. So possible, yes, but that would actually be, in my opinion, a pretty good bottoming area. Personally, if Bitcoin was to top out here, like assuming we've already seen the cycle high, I would be expecting at least somewhere around $50,000. If it comes down lower than that, I don't think it's going to be a whole hell of a lot lower than that, but that would be a 55% drop off. So that would be certainly a lot less in terms of in terms of diminishing returns. So is that reasonable to believe? You can always come up with reasons after the fact, right? But my reason would be, well, look, I mean, things are getting like so mainstream now that maybe it does take that big of a leap from cycle to cycle where it's not as big of a drawdown. Possible, yes, but I want to see it come down first and then just wait for bottoming signals before I really declare a low for next cycle. Anyways, Joseph says, "Hello, Kron. It is I, Joseph. I've been watching you analysis since 2018, and you've been both the most informative and most entertaining crypto analyst. I'm glad for at least one of those things. Earlier this week in a stream, you said that you thought Bitcoin was done for a while, ergo the top was in. Yeah." I think that I do think that this cycle is more or less over. Could it be possible that Bitcoin on this next bounce, maybe makes a slightly new high, like let's say $120,000, give or take a few bucks from that number? I think it's possible, but effectively, just like last cycle, this first high here was more or less your high. I mean, yes, it did trade higher a little bit later, but you would have been pretty damn happy selling at this, at this region in hindsight, right? So I have the same sort of opinion of this cycle. But yeah, I'll go on to read the rest of your comment. This would imply the 5-day hash ribbon's buy signal failed. Yes, very possible. Why in your eyes would the signal this time have failed if the top is truly in? Why? What do you think causes such powerful signals to fail at all? Well, it can fail. Like it's not like this signal has never failed before. So we're not talking about something that's impossible, right? It's just low probability. And to be fair, when you're looking at the hash ribbons, like it really, really irritates me, the fucking dumbass takes that I see on the hash ribbons all the fucking time. But we've seen for this current cycle, the hash ribbons fire off once, twice, thrice, 4 times. All 4 times it worked. If it fails this time, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of comments like, "You fucking moron, you got it wrong. Hash ribbon's dumb." It's like, you fucking retarded moron. I'm sorry to use these terms, but it is accurate in this case. If something works out more often than not, are you going to pay attention to it? If you're not a fucking retard, yes. If you are, then maybe not. I don't know. I am retarded myself as well, but hopefully not that retarded. I'm always going to bet on the thing that's more likely to happen. Now, in this case, we do have a very simple failure condition for this one, and it's closing below the last trending low before the signal was created. In this case, that would be here at 76,700. Now, I can go both ways with this very fucking easily. The reason why is because we did have a pretty unique event where it actually did break it for just one day by a very small amount, to be fair. It was during the tariffs, right? So, could you look at this and say, maybe it didn't actually break, it's actually fine. Perhaps yes. A lot of the time I'll go to the 5-day time frame as well and see if it broke there too. And in this case, it actually has not. It has not closed below that low. So I can make the arguments both ways right now. We won't. The truth of the matter is we won't know until Bitcoin either makes new highs or makes new lows below, or makes new highs above the current high, or makes new lows below the April lows. So yeah. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, anything can fail. There are such things as black swans, which are extremely low probability, but they do happen over time. Think of the Rona dump, think of oil going below zero, these sort of things. Like, they can happen. They don't happen often, but they can happen. So yeah. Anyways, moving on, we have Tristram. He says, "Sup, how's your bot slaves are doing?" I don't know. I don't want to show like my actual ones because, well, privacy, but I will show you the quantum wave bands. 30-minute time frame, hasn't taken a trade during this consolidation for the past week. I'd say that's probably a good sign, honestly. Like, this is not the high probability time. Let's see what the hourly has done. Let's let it load. Hourly actually did take up a couple trades within this consolidation, both pretty good, I'd say. But yeah, other than that, I'm not going to give away like my own stuff. Just it's obvious reasons, right? Anyways, for the next few months, I'll be paid heavily in a heavily inflating currency. I don't need this money right now, so I consider converting it into Bitcoin or trading it into Bitcoin. What would be your buy targets for the next 3 months, both for bullish, sell the next major top, and bearish? 1 year HODL case. By the way, are you going to keep free trials of your services? For now, yes, but not for forever, probably. But yeah, for now, anyone can take advantage of them. Just use the code TRIAL in all capitals. Like I said, it works for the quantum wave bands. Also, the new price action pivots indicator over here, which I'm very excited about, and Caretaker's indicator suite, which is just, in my opinion, the best indicators available, or at least that we have. Anyways, yes. Okay. So to answer the question straight up, what would be your targets for the next 3 months, both for bullish and bearish? Okay. 1 year out, bearish targets, I would think somewhere around 50 minimum, something like this, if Bitcoin has topped. And if Bitcoin has not topped, I think at most it would get somewhere around $120,000. I could easily see Bitcoin on this next rally. I could easily see getting anywhere between like very low 90s to all the way, like I said, to $120,000. Until we get the next sort of obvious topping signal. I won't know, of course, it's just crystal ball stuff, which is highly prone to being wrong, right? But yeah, that's kind of what I'd be thinking as of right now. Who knows how that changes in the future. Ladies Man 217 says, GM Crown, what is your absolute lowest you see Ethereum going aside from zero? Zero is always the lowest, but very few things actually ever get to zero, even like literal scams. I mean, it truly is the hardest chart to love. Jesus, man. First off, it should be bouncing kind of where it's at right now. I think that it will bounce more, but yeah. What do I think is the lowest it would go? I do think it's very possible to come down to 1,000. If it starts to break below your 2022 lows, then I guess 500. I don't fucking know, man. It's kind of hard to see that, but that would be my just quick 5-second take. Anyways, MS33K says, hello, Sir Crown. Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing great as well, sir. We have a bottom call target, by the way, here from MS. He says 33. So perhaps even lower. Palladium on the monthly. What is a ticker for Palladium? I'm just going to type it in. No, that's not right. Hold on. I need to copy and paste this. Palladium. Okay. No, I did spell it right, but it's literally right there in front of my face. Okay, idiot. Calling myself an idiot, not you. Is 450 the bottom for this downtrend? Well, it didn't get anywhere near there, so maybe I am looking at the wrong thing. 450 was your lows from 2016. I think it's trying to put in a low right here. And I would be treating it as a low as long as it's above that price action pivot of almost $900. Below there, okay, yeah, sure. Comes down probably at least towards like 680, 700-ish region. But other than that, I wouldn't just blindly call it low there. I'd give this area a chance right here first. Generally, I think most things in this market are set to try decent bounces, but a lot of them are also set up to put in some pretty nasty bull traps as well. On Twitter, Bob Blala says, are you familiar with the Lorentzian classification indicator? No, I'm not. There's a million indicators out there, man. And I, realistically only know a few compared to the massive sea of indicators available in the world. All right. Mario Super says, My dear Crown, thanks again for the nice answer to my philosophical question during the last Q&A about a 9-to-5 job and money. I totally agree. Not all we need to do needs to be seen in a way that has to be fun. Yeah, I think chasing fun, honestly, just makes you fucking depressed and miserable anyways, because then you're always just focused on, am I having fun? Is this fun? Am I having enough fun right now? Can I be having more fun doing something else maybe? It's like, no, just fucking be there with whatever you're doing and enjoy that that. Get out of your fucking mind. I think ironically that mindset and approach will often lead to less. Oh, you literally said exactly what I was thinking. That's awesome, man. There are many other positive drivers of action that will lead to especially long-term happiness and feelings of fulfillment. Yeah, fulfillment is what you want. And it's not even happiness that, or at least in my case, I don't care to have happiness. I care to have like peace and just relaxation. That's what I care about. And that usually, comes alongside happiness. But yeah. Anyways, obsessing about everything that you have to do that has to be fun. Like right now, it just leads to that hedonic treadmill, doesn't it? And that's a literal path to nowhere. Anyways, speaking about fun, I know you like to play video games. Have you ever played Super Mario games or Tetris? Tetris for sure. Super Mario games, actually no. But yeah, I love a good strategy game. I love Total War. These sort of things, like the super nerdy type shit where you have to like plan your moves and all this sort of stuff and manage your economies and armies. That sort of stuff I love, man. It's actually like crack cocaine to me. Anyways, Free Mind says, hello, brother. How are you? I'm doing all right, man. I hope much better than just decent this week. Yeah. I mean, we have a fun little event coming up. How would you advise someone working a 9-to-5 to approach trading? Which market, what time frames, etc.? I've been keeping up with both crypto and TradFi, and I'm starting to feel mentally drained, especially in these market conditions, looking for some direction. Yeah, there's always something that's moving. There's always something that's, interesting. And I think the one thing that you're missing from your list here is Forex. Forex is actually quite interesting right now. I don't like to trade it that much myself, but there are moves happening there in a very nice trending fashion that you're just not getting in other markets. So that's where the action's at right now, and I do think that Forex trades decently technically. So, you can carry over your skills from, a commodity trading to Forex. Of course, there are going to be a lot of, economic events that impact things. You do have to be aware of that. It is really fucking annoying, which is why I don't like to trade it myself. But yeah, it's a good place to learn as well, because one of the biggest issues with learning to trade in crypto, especially, is people fall in love with their favorite shitcoins or Bitcoin for that matter as well. And that just leads to all sorts of dumb decisions, right? So how would I advise someone working a 9-to-5 to approach trading? Okay, I would say first off, don't follow the advice on the internet to quit your job and go all in. Don't fucking do that. Why? Because you don't need to, and you need security while you are in the learning phase, which I assume that you are. The learning phase can last, years, especially in my case. So what I would suggest to do is continue to work your 9-to-5. And if you have a job that allows you to, put in earphones and shit like this, you can listen to content about trading that will help you with trading while you're at work, right? And that can set you up more long term, of course. Then you do your own studies and your own actions while you're, when you're not at work, and you can build up a skill set. I would say, if you're very consistent with it, anywhere between 6 months to 2 years. I think that most people will get pretty proficient within that time frame, and then from there, it's kind of just tightening up loose ends and whatnot. So yeah. Other than that, I would just say, just don't rush things. Make sure that you have, a decent amount of cash built up before you potentially even leave your job. Because, if you can milk it both ways, where you are getting paid on like a consistent basis, which takes the pressure off of your trading, on a day-to-day basis, and you can at least build up, a nest egg so that you don't have to be making money today or making money this month or maybe even making money this year. That will put you in a position of power, and that's where I see people do really, 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 really well. So yeah, Volpe says, Sunday greetings, sir. Sunday's greetings to you as well, sir. Thoughts on Litecoin daily, weekly? Bitcoin pair looks weak, as it typically does. Let's check it out. All right, Litecoin here. Very uninteresting chart. It's a chart that's gone nowhere since 2018. It's always a bad sign, in my opinion. Can it have its pumps? Sure, but just better things, man. Anyways, as far as Litecoin goes, do I think it's going to follow the rest of the market and generally bounce higher here instead of going lower than last week's low? Yes. We can see the range here for the price action pivots is showing a low of 73.25 and the high of $80.50. If you can trade above $80.50, I'd declare this one as a breakout to the upside. Target's probably somewhere around 90-ish, maybe even all the way up to the 200 simple, close to $100. But, long term, it's very, very, very difficult chart to love, of course. But yeah, generally bounce first instead of going lower than last week's low first. What happens after that? That's where things can get a lot more nasty. But give it a chance to bounce first. You got an obvious accumulation or an obvious trading range, I should say, for the past many years between about 140 to the upside versus these rising lows on the downside. I would actually just use this last trending low here on August of 2024. As long as you're above there, I guess long term, you can hold on to some hopium that this is some sort of reaccumulation formation. But the second that you take out this low from August 2024, this thing will catastrophically fall apart well below $50. I'll put it that way, man. Hodling Bitcoin on Twitter says, after the pre-halving March Bitcoin high in 2024, 58K became the magnet for price, and a meme for 6 months is 84K playing out as the new 58K. I guess that's the bullish view. It's possible. We're not going to know until we actually have a resolution of this, right? But I would say objectively, this I wouldn't call this consolidation. This price action here is objectively different than this price action here. The reason why is because we had a very, very sharp downturn in a way that we did not see during this whole consolidation. And that was, of course, these couple weeks right here. Up until that point, if things were like nice and orderly to the downside, I would say yes, but that's not what we have. And we have a very different look on a lot of the very high term time frame oscillators. In this segment here, it was pretty easy for me on this channel to remain with a long-term bullish bias. Of course, there were short-term bearish moves, but the long-term bullish bias was, I don't want to say easy to hold on to, but it was the more logical thing to be holding on to. Whereas in this case, I think it's less logical as of now. Anyways, Bunny Toss on Twitter says, GM Crown, love your content. You seem, hey man, appreciate that. We're actually doing requests here on Discord first. This is the purpose of these videos, but perhaps if we got time at the very, very end, we can go through some of these shitcoin requests as well. I'm going to guess though, bonk, if it's like anything else, short term, probably a bounce, long term, death, most likely. Anyways, without even looking at it. Anyways, Nick says, thanks for all you do. All good, man. I'm just a fucking idiot on the internet talking. So I'm doing a lot. Can you take a look at MicroStrategy weekly, monthly? Sure, man. This one, last we looked at it, it actually looked a lot better than Bitcoin. Yeah. And it still looks a lot better than Bitcoin. I could easily see MicroStrategy making new all-time highs in a way that Bitcoin just doesn't look nearly as strong. I mean, you can see on the daily here, it's literally above all major moving averages, whereas Bitcoin is below all of the important ones and maintaining a downtrend below them as well, which is usually not a good sign. Weekly, I think that this one tries higher. You got a very obvious range here on the weekly between 345 to the upside versus 231 to the downside. I do think at some point it is going to break out the top side and pop back up above $400, probably even just carry on with some new highs. I'd be bullish on this thing as long as it's above the monthly 5 EMA, which is 292.5. Yeah. And even the quarterly looks like this one wants to just engulf the past quarterly dildo. So, is that good for Bitcoin? Probably, but these things haven't really traded that similarly to each other in recent, that's for sure. So yeah, I really don't know what to make of this, but this is an easy chart for me to maintain a bullish bias on. Bitcoin is on the long term, not in the short term. Yes. So yeah, I guess we'll see how that one plays out. Cause it does bother me that, that chart looks, I would say obviously bullish, and Bitcoin not so obvious. And usually you'd expect them to play hand in hand, right? But it doesn't seem to be working that way. Anyways, Nuke the Black Cubes says, GM simp inversion. That's me. Crown, can we have story time about when you got blown up as a professional TradFi trader and had to eat ground beef and broccoli? I still actually eat ground beef. I don't eat gay shit like broccoli. There's none of that in my life. I do eat some fruit, but certainly not that garbage. Sorry, it's not garbage, okay? Just making a joke on the internet, that's all. Anyways, what asset was it? How much did you lose? How did your colleagues... Jesus, do you also want my social security number? Okay, so what asset was it? It was SPY. It was SPY. SPY over here. It was during this period... Jeez, gotta go all the way back here. It was during this segment over here where it was just traveling up and up and up and up and up above those 2008 highs, and I thought that was genius because, well, I had all this amazing, pedigree with teaching from some great, probably some of the best traders that were around during the time, and I thought, okay, this thing has to come down, so I'm going to short and short and short, and as you can see, it continued to go up and up and up, and then right before this segment right here. Yeah, you already know the rest of the story. I was early to the party. Anyways, how much did I lose? It was somewhere around $150,000, which was pretty much all that I had at that point. How did your colleagues, friend, and family react? Most of them didn't really know. Friends didn't really talk about it with them. If you don't understand trading, then it's just, I don't know. It's hard to talk about it. Family, kind of, I kind of told them. It was a mixed bag with my family. Obviously, my mom, at that point, was like, "Okay, you need to quit trading. You need to come back home and I don't know, become a doctor or fireman or some shit like this." And that really just set me off in the other direction, to be honest. Colleagues, I don't know. I think most of my colleagues understood because most professional traders have at least one story of blowing up. So, but still, when you're going through it, really, I don't think it helps that much when someone else is like, yeah, I went through that and I actually came out on top. But because that was their general response. For me, it was like, okay, how do I do it? How did I cope with it and rebound emotionally? It was fucking terrible, man. I mean, it's like, I remember the feeling actually quite well. I remember feeling as if someone had their boot and was putting all their weight on my chest, and it was hard to breathe. And I remember I remember wanting to completely shield myself off from the rest of the world. I lived in this apartment and I'd just have the fucking blinds closed all day, and I'd just sit on my couch, not even doing anything, for the first couple of weeks of getting completely fucking wrecked. How did I rebound? It was more so, I had a pretty clear purpose at that point. It was okay, to not be fucking broke. And the only real skill that I'd built up to that point, if you can call it that, was trading. And so I figured, okay, I know it's possible to make it as a trader. I know it's possible to actually do, because I've been around all these people who are doing it, despite them also blowing up their account at some point for pretty much all of them. And so I just kind of baby stepped my way there. It's okay, I know it's possible. So how can I backwards engineer the best possibility or the best probability for me to actually, pull through and be successful? And so from there, I basically got really deep into back testing and just setting out very objective and obvious conditions for setting up, trade strategies. And that was the way forward. So once I started to actually work on forwards progress, even though I still was broke, that's when I started to... It's not that I wasn't not depressed. It's just I wasn't focusing on it anymore. So it didn't exist. You'll feel whatever you focus on. So yeah. Do you still check in on that asset, or I was checking on it every day? It blows my mind, man. I mean, it's trading over here below $2,000. Now it trades at hit highs above 6,000. So yeah. It's crazy to watch, man. Also Microsoft as well. I mean, I was trading that thing when it was $30-40. Now it's at 400. Fucking insane, man. Crown in bear market was basically McDonald's Wojak. Yeah, pretty much. Shack Attack says, I see bullish bearish divergence while backtesting. When it is happening real time, I either jump in too early or too late. Any tips, and how long should you expect to be in a trade based on time frame? Let's say 15-minute time frame, for example. You have to backtest these things, and then you have then you'll know the answer. There are two ways to play divergence. There's a way to front run it, which you run the risk of course, not like the divergence doesn't get confirmed and then you just get run over. But you also have the potential reward of just having bigger rewards, like you get in at a better price. The other way is to wait for them to be confirmed. That's the way that I like to look at them. And of course, you're going to give up some on the trade, like some of it will already have played out, but you're going to have a lot more, a lot more success just in your average trade. So I prefer that way. But again, you're not going to know how long it's going to be until you backtest these things, because you also didn't go over your profit taking, which is just as important, which is of course going to massively influence how long you're going to be in a trade. Are you looking for that divergence to create a new trend? Okay, you're probably going to be holding on to it for a while. If you're just looking for that divergence to play out a scalp move, well, it's going to be significantly less, of course. All right, Man of course, next he says, greetings, sir. If the bi-monthly does close below its pivot, will you be looking at offloading some of your spot positions, trade long-term hodl, looking for a bull trap to do so? Yeah, if Bitcoin got back above 95, I would actually be interested in buying puts rather than selling off spot positions. I have made a promise to myself that I do not fucking touch those no matter what, and I've been doing that since 2019, somewhere around there I started. So yeah, man, I still want to be holding that for at least like 10 years, but, will I protect some of it in this event? Most likely, yes, and I'll do that with puts, most likely. What's up, Lovewoods? Morning to you as well, sir. Speak of the devil. Spy, and I think it was daily. Daily. Okay. Very similar to Bitcoin, in my opinion. It's like, I don't think you're taking out last week's low anytime soon. I think that this is a bounce phase. I think that this bounce could easily reach back up to like 5650, somewhere around here, maybe even gun for the 200 simple at like 5800. I mean, that does typically happen after you get a break. But those at first pass would have to be looked at as lower highs, in my opinion, or not even in my opinion, like it quite literally is. You'll know that trade is very, very likely if and when it does trade above Thursday's high. Yeah. Other than that, I think you're going to bounce somewhere up here, but it's ripe for a major bull trap, as long as you're below like 6,000. So that's what makes this very difficult, because this quite literally is the wall of worry here that it needs to climb back above. I'm not saying it's impossible for it to do this. Just as long as you're below 6,000, like there is, like that's what a bull trap would look like, popping back up there, coming back down, something like that. So we'll see. But generally the next move for most things, I think is going to be to the upside. Maybe they come down a very slight amount in the short term, but I just do not think that they're taking out last week's lows. That's where my convictions are right now. All right. Treebeard, he says, GM, sir, really appreciate your kindness. I appreciate that, man. I don't know if everyone would say that I'm kind, especially the people who I earlier called retarded, but fair enough. My question is, if you want to trade a coin with USDT pair, would you consider looking at at its Bitcoin pair or not? No. No. If you're just trading a coin, I think looking at the dollar pair is better, just because it's more stable. But if you're looking to hold something for the long term, then yeah, you want to look at the Bitcoin pair, just because, well, if it's not outpacing Bitcoin, what's the point, right? So yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't bother with that, because it's not going to necessarily mean the same thing anyways. Some water for myself as we get to Mr. Barash. He's looking at OM. Oh God, this one's a little bit late, but we called a top on this one a while ago. Like I said, I couldn't have told you it's going to come down like this so fast, but a top is a top. Looking at it here, it's like you're around a major moving average on the weekly, the 200 simple there at 80 cents or so. I'm inclined to say that you're going to bounce within this region, but this thing is done for maybe for forever, but it's at least a very long time. So something like that, it could bounce up a lot, but it's just lower highs, especially as long as you're below 330. That's a 6x move from where it's at right now. So, I think it's going to find a top a lot before that. Who knows what that number is going to be? These things can be very, very volatile, of course. What's up, Blake? Good morning to you on Twitter as well, sir. Yes. Okay. There we go. All right. Smikies is next. He says, hello, Admiral. Nice. I like this one. I'm curious, as I'm sure your fellow members are, as what algo prerequisites suit your personal requirements. You posted your strategy recently. As to my newbie eye, it looks underwhelming from a reward to risk perspective, especially when viewing how it's fared through 2022 to current. Understand that when I post strategies for the Quant Prime users, these are highly unoptimized strategies. Yes, I will build off of those for my own personal strategies, but you have to understand that these, I have to leave them unoptimized because we can't have everyone using the same fucking thing, just for obvious reasons. And if you're looking for a way to optimize it, you identify the exact period to really focus on. Anyways, if you don't mind shedding some light, I was wondering on how this suits your personal situation. Yeah, again, you're making the mistake of thinking that that's exactly my strategy. No, it's not. It's more so like a template that I've worked off of to create one of my strategies, which you're free to do as well. But I'm not going to spoon feed it in that way. I think also that'd probably be considered like financial advice, and it is illegal. Not that I think anyone would really care, but yeah, can't really do that. There's no reason for me to potentially risk giving that away. Doesn't really make sense to me, but yeah, just so you I think the original synopsis is just is wrong there. But yeah. Anyways, Kim B says price is still hovering between the 377 EMA and the 200 simple moving average, which was a really good buy zone in your previous analysis. It hasn't broken out of it yet. Could we consider that for some hopium? Yeah. Like I said, I think things are going to bounce here, man. Is there any further analysis that you can see when we look at the signal as it stands today? There's nothing really else to it. You got the main portion. Bitcoin between the 200 simple and 377, that was a great buy zone throughout pretty much this whole cycle. I don't have anything to add on to it than you already know. A lot of these things are pretty simple. It's just being consistent with it and adhering to it is the difficult part. So yeah, as long as it holds between these, basically as long as it doesn't go below last week's low, you got a chance for sure. I do think that it does have a bigger bounce to go to the upside at some point before it's all said and done. But yeah, that's really all that I have to say about that, man. It is what it is. It is what it is, and there's really not much else to it, man. The only reason why we follow these things is because it just gives us an objective way to figure out if it is failing, That's where your signal is. Anyways, Tobo says, GM Crown, I hope you're hydrated. Actually, good reminder. That's much better. All right. It's possible to look at the moon cycle in Bitcoin, but price the gains in Bitcoin instead of shitcoin. Yeah, actually, yes, there is. Can do that with the Quant Prime here. Okay, let me think about this. Let's go to properties. Let's go to, can we use Bitcoin? Oh, it usually gives us the option to use Bitcoin. That's weird. I can't choose, maybe it's because, no, it is right there. Okay, yeah. All right, we'll do something like this. This is going to be like a humongous amount, but yeah, you can get it priced in Bitcoin. Again, this is assuming you're using $500,000 as your base position size in USD and then converting that into Bitcoin as far as your profits go. But yeah, that would be it. And to be fair, we're still in a bull moon, if you want to call it that. It looks a little bit lackadaisical right now, though. A little bit lazy. In other words, given a stack of Bitcoin with no new investment, statistically based on history, would the holder end up with more Bitcoin? Oh, you just want to, what you're looking for is to compare it versus just like buy and hold. You can actually do that as well with the backtester, but I would say it's kind of a moot point to begin with because you can trade what's known as inverse perpetual contracts, which allow you to hold Bitcoin as a collateral. So you are effectively doing both. You're trading for more Bitcoin and you're also holding the Bitcoin as collateral. So yeah, I get this question a lot, which is why I'm just why I immediately go to that. It's like, dude, it doesn't matter because there's already a solution for that. The only thing that could potentially fuck that up, where did this go? The only thing that could potentially fuck that up, of course, is if your exchange doesn't have it. But there's plenty of answers for that. Could you go into ChatGPT and ask it, why am I gay? Since it knows you, perhaps it will be accurate. Or maybe Grok. We only have so much time here, sir. Do you really want to know about my sexuality and whatnot? I don't know. ChatGPT probably is a really good answer. Mr. Van Duysen says, hello, Crown. I know you're too polite to refuse. Please come check out my shoe collection. No problem, sir. I'll be right on over. Longtime sub, late 2020. Hell yeah, man. But only recently started to be active on the socials. Just want to say thanks. Dude, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank you very much, man. And glad that you actually like started to step into the community. It's fucking fun, man. Like the Discord's fucking fun. Especially the general section as well. Like in the pit, like there are some fucking characters in there. It's a good time, man. Dunning-Kruger effect says, good morning, sir. Could you please give me your thoughts on my plan? Okay. You're looking at DSY. This is actually a really good way to formulate these questions. Like, give me an opinion on my plan rather than just like, what should my plan be? Anyways, you're entering at 33.70, stop loss 30, time frame weekly. What's your target, sir? Since I'm looking to keep it for a year at least, is my stop loss too tight? Okay, so you entered. Let me just double check here. Okay, entry 33. Your stop loss is 10% away. So it's basically last week's low. I think that's a pretty good stop loss to be having because you're essentially playing this one as one long-term accumulation, I suppose. Now the problem is that the monthly isn't a downtrend. So you are playing against, the greater prevailing trend here. But it doesn't look like a super, super strong one to me. Now, just based off of your plan, do I think that that's a font, does that work out as a plan? Yes. Yeah, I do think so. Yeah. And I do think that probably within the next year, you do see, a move up maybe closer to $40. Do I think it's going to like break out and reverse the trend? I'm not going to say that right now just because, higher term timeframes are bearish here objectively, but give it a chance. If it can trade back above the first quarter's high of 41.17, I would say you're in a really good position and you could probably hold that for a while. Yeah. But it really does look like one massive long-term consolidation. So I don't think it's going to be doing like anything super significant to the upside in the next year, for example. RCV says, good morning, Crown. Which tool do you use to make the Fibonacci time extensions and the setting? It's just right here. So you go, you can't even see it, but on the left-hand side on TradingView, you go to the place where it says Gann and Fibonacci tools. You check the Fib time zone, as you see right here, and then you just plot it in a similar way that you'd use a trend-based fib. And I like to look at the 382 and the 618 and then even numbers, or sorry, not even numbers, but just whole integers as well. There's no real right or wrong way to do that, but the right or wrong way is to use like major fibs, right? Anyways, more water and then we move on. All right, Igni Musu says, good morning, dear Crown. And Elsa, your knowledge and humor are bright. I'm glad to hear that, man. Could you share your thoughts on best ways to determine trading strategies? You backwards engineer. Like, what do you want to do? How do you want it to look like? So backtesting tools, Quant Prime AI. Yeah, that's, in my opinion, the best one to use. That's commercially available and, somewhat easy to use. It does take a little bit of study, but like I said, man, you can try it out for free for 30 days and see if it fits your preferences or not. But yeah, and we have a shit ton of strategies in that sort of unoptimized state that I spoke about earlier in what we call the Quant library on Discord here. In fact, I'll show you it really, really quickly, but Quant library, bunch of different strategies. I post a bunch. Other people post strategies as well. No one's forced to post their strategies, but yeah, there are probably close to like 200 at this point. Anyways, going back over here, first, what I do in my strategy creation process is like I set a goal. Do I want to be scalping, a short-term upside move on XYZ time frame, or do I want to be, trend trading on such a time frame? Then once I have that, I focus in on the exact price action that I want to capture, like that I want to capitalize on. And from there, I just add my usual indicators and I check, okay, do any of these have like a consistent signal across time that has led to the effect that I'm looking for to capture this move? And you only know that if, through your back testing. So that's why, I love the Quant Prime AI, because I can just back test that so fucking fast now and figure out if it's actually going to be worth pursuing or not. So yeah. Moon says, and you'll say calculating position size by reverse engineering you can do it that way. That's a pretty extreme way, to be fair. But, yeah, I like to go with like the worst case scenario, or like what would essentially be a black swan, because at some point, it could and will happen. Maybe you don't get 10 losing trades in a row, but maybe you take a couple of big losses in a row that would equate to that. So I like to assume that that is a scenario that will happen at some point. So yeah. Anyways, Moon says, GM, sir, hope thy ass is hydrated. Actually, pretty good in that regard. Could you give your thoughts on the weekly Gaussian channel on CME? I backtested it and found that the best signal using Gaussian for an exit of Bitcoin on larger timeframes is if Bitcoin opens and closes a weekly inside of the channel. Get the fuck out, as a big correction is inbound. Let's check it out. I haven't actually looked at this myself, but let's see. All right, we'll put this on here. We'll take this off for now. We'll take off all of our drawing tools as well. Okay, so we can see thus far in this cycle, Bitcoin has liked to use the top side as a nice bouncy zone. However, it is not an immediate bullish thing. Or sorry, it's not immediately bearish if it does come back down below. It does imply a correction maybe to the median here, but this is not like a tremendously nasty move, less than 20% there, which is not much for Bitcoin. Past cycle, closing below, yep, go fuck yourself. Cycle over here, closing below, not an immediate problem, but certainly the second time. And then we have one more iteration here. It's pretty limited, man. I don't know. Now, if Bitcoin did close below the topside Gaussian channel, then, I'd effectively look at that as just likely to come down anyways to the median. So I think that you'd have that, but I don't know if I just blindly say that there's, a 52 to like 70% correction coming in alignment from that. Just for reference here, the difference between the top side and the median is a mere 13.5%. So wouldn't be the worst. Yeah, I don't know if I'd make that same, or I would not make that same synopsis, but it is certainly a signal of correction. And that correction, can be decent. So yeah, all right. Let's see what else we got. So we have Crypto Life 101. He says, hello there. Can you go through and describe the difference between your courses, who they are meant for, I think is what that's supposed to mean. I know there are getting quite a few. Yeah, I actually want to reduce the amount, honestly. Most are actually all of them now, except for two, are just indicator packages. So Quant Prime AI is the backtesting script. This is for certainly more advanced people. If you're newer, or even if you're intermediate, intermediate probably does benefit from this, but certainly if you're newer, it's going to be too steep of a learning curve to get over and make use of. Just shooting you straight, man. Quantum wave bands. This is like a done for you black box strategy. You've seen it many times. It's this guy over here. It just is what it is. Low term time frame scalping strategy. Yes, we are adding more to it at the end of this month, but yeah, that's what it is. This one is kind of made for beginners, if you will. Especially compared to Quant Prime. Like we wanted to have something relatively similar, but friendly towards beginners. Caretaker's indicator suite, that's just all of Caretaker's indicators. So it includes all the other ones that you see here, the RSI divergence indicator, the historical price action statistics, which actually haven't even shown for a long time now, and the HPDR ecosystem, which is, in my opinion, the best indicators that I've come across in terms of like uniqueness and value. Price action pivots, like I said, that's very, very new. This one's actually quite friendly towards beginners as well. And Caretaker's indicator suite can be friendly towards beginners because, the RSI is pretty beginner friendly and statistics are, are as they are. The HPDR obviously a little bit more involved, but price action pivots I think is really good for new people just because it gives you like algorithmically defined pivots to be aware of, should your bias be to the upside or the downside? And then it shows you exactly where that changes. That's, in my opinion, probably one of the best things, if not the best things for a new person. Trade Like a Quant program. This is an actual informational program, meaning that it runs you through the full sort of roadmap of how to, first understand some indicators, the common indicators that I use, and then put them into a strategy, and also the sort of roadmap to create your own strategies, which we kind of briefly went over earlier. Now, it's a bit of a secret right now, but I have been working on it and will continue to work on major upgrades for this program. I actually want to completely overhaul it into kind of what the prior TA program was, to be honest with you. I also want to give an indicator for the people who have this program as well. Of course, by the way, if you do have this program, you're not going to pay anything extra when we do that. It's just, these are changes that I'll definitely be making before the end of the year, probably even before the end of the summer. But I want to do like a full overhaul because I'm really in a stage now where I want to be giving away like all of the most important things that I've learned that I think really hold a lot of value. Similar to the TA program, except that one just got too fucking big and it's also old. So this is kind of like the updated version of it. Anyways, other than that, they're pretty much all included in prior ones. Master options, that's about options trading, definitely not relevant to newer people. Advanced stochastic package, that's this indicator right here. Can be useful for newer people, I suppose. Yeah, I use it all the time, to be fair. So, I do find it very, very valuable. And then you got the trading psychology blueprint, which I'll probably implement into the Trade Like a Quant program after the major overhaul. And now that I recognize it, the prices on all of these are actually higher because I'm based in Finland and it's charging me fucking VAT. That's some bullshit, man. That's some bullshit. Use a VPN and don't pay that nonsense. Anyways, hopefully that was helpful, man. And when is the last day to use the 30-day trial code? We haven't set out a date just yet. We're still, I'm still pretty happy with people trying shit out for free. But at some point, yeah, we will get rid of it. Luch says, good morning, Crown and Elsa. I must say, I've been looking forward to your videos every morning for the past few years. That's fucking awesome, man. Thank you. I can't believe you never missed a day. Yeah, man, it's, I'm just like that. I'm like that with everything. Like ever since I started boxing as well, like I can't not miss a day of it. Anyways, check out gold 1-4 in daily. Okay. Let's see. Let's get off of this one. Let's go back to this one. Yeah, I've been saying this for a while. This thing is in the end stages of its parabolic advance. I really don't know how much more it has to go because this is the most difficult portion of a parabolic advance, like the last firings of it. But I am inclined to say it has probably at least one more new high. If you're down on the lower term timeframes, yeah, short term, I think it tries a little bit higher, maybe closer to like 33.40. 4 hour time frame, same thing, short term bullish as long as you're above the last 4 hour low of 32.85 or so. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I think that there's still some more upside here, but it's really close to the end, like really, really close to the end. And when it shifts around, it's going to be fucking fast. Anyways, last one for Pukas. Pukas says, hello, sir. Less of a question and more of a request. Could you please make El Satoshi aware that alligators are not only quite friendly, but also tasty when fried? I'm sure she's going to love some gator stew or something like this. The old swamp puppies, I can imagine they're quite sweet. Anyways, that's a good place maybe leaving off on this stream. We are going to continue on with the lives on Twitter while I pre-record videos, and anyone's welcome to join in on Twitter. My account is, I think, in the description below as well. And yeah, we'll end things on that note. Again, want to wish everyone the best. Take care, much love, happy Easter, and see you hopefully Monday.